Hello and welcome to Rich Rides. This week I'm on the Indian Scout Bobber, and this one's slightly modified too, with a few Indian accessories. So, as I mentioned earlier, this bike's got a few differences to standard. So first off are these wheels and tyres. They're not the normal ones. All these parts are from Indian themselves though, apart from the exhaust, which I'll go into in a sec. So yeah, so they're different. It's got these higher bars, the normal bars are a lot lower, and the mirrors I think are slightly different as well. So what else? As you can tell, this is the matte black finish, which is a standard version. This bobber seat, then normally the seat comes down here. So this, and it's not the comfiest seat, but I think it's more a style thing. You wouldn't want to be sat on that all day, I don't think. The Fox shock absorbers, again, Fox work with Indian, but they're not standard on this model. And finally, I think the footboards. And this exhaust is mega loud. It sounds absolutely epic. It's, like I say, it's not the stock exhaust. The stock one, in my opinion, from things I've sort of read and seen, is a little bit quiet. This definitely isn't. I'm not sure the make, it doesn't say on it, but I'll find out and put that in the description. When it comes to switchgear, everything is pretty much as you'd expect, all fairly standard stuff with your lights, indicators, horn, on-off starter, and that's about it. There's no sort of fancy rider modes. You do have this really simple display, so obviously there's just the analog dials, a few warning lights, and obviously gear position indicator. It has rev counter as a LCD, time there, and apparently, I'm not sure where the button is, maybe that's it. Oh no, that's a USB port, which is handy. I think there is a way to scroll through different things on there too. Doesn't seem to have a full fuel gauge, but it does have a fuel warning light. So on to the practicalities. The sort of seating position, as you'd expect for a big cruiser, then it's very feet forward, and all your controls forward too. It is a nice comfy riding position, this, even with these slightly higher bars. It does have to be said that this seat isn't the most comfortable though. There's definitely sort of style over substance. As far as the engine's concerned, this is a 1133cc engine, so I'm not sure whether they call it 1100 or a 1200. It produces around 100 horsepower and around 100 newton meters of torque, and it really is a cracking engine. Like I say, it's a V-twin, as you can hear, and as you'd expect for a cruiser. But performance-wise, yeah, it's great. So as for the suspension, then as you can see here, I'm on a cobbled road. It's not the smoothest, but actually the suspension's soaking it all up. I've not had it bottom out or anything. It's probably slightly stiffer than I would have expected for a cruiser, but it's perfectly alright. Like I say, it's slightly hard, but you can probably dial that out a bit on the shocks too. And this has got sort of rear twin shocks. As I mentioned, they're not the standard ones, they're the sort of Indian aftermarket ones, which are made by Fox. Not sure on the make of the front forks, but they're fairly chunky. There's a bit of a biker's cafe here, as you can tell, with the motorbike embedded in the wall. Handling wise, it takes a bit of getting used to, but once you are used to it, it's absolutely fine. I'm used to things very different at the moment, so the extra weight of this and the sort of seating position, it took me quite a while to get used to it. But for a big heavy bike, it seems to go around corners pretty well, especially for a cruiser. We're just cruising along here in 6th gear, stuck behind this traffic. I'll talk about wind protection. There isn't any, as you'd expect with a cruiser, but it's all very clean air and the bike feels completely planted, which is probably down to the weight as well. I think it's something like 225 kilos dry, so it's a pretty heavy bike. May even be 235 kilos actually, but yeah, so it's quite a heavy bike, but when you're moving it makes no difference. It doesn't feel cumbersome at all. The brakes on this Scout are way better than I expected. It's got a twin pot caliper on the front, disc of course, and just a single on the rear. Rear brake works fine, front brakes really good. I'm really impressed with it. So these are the kinds of roads that this bike likes, these nice sort of fairly quick sort of A road type things. It can do twisties, but that's not what it's built for. Could do motorways and highways, that'd be fine too, but of course you've got no protection. But for me, this is what cruising's all about, actually cruising. When it comes to price, then in the UK this bike is around £11,000. So let's do my 3 top things I like about this bike. The first thing are the looks. Even if you're not really into cruisers, the looks of this thing are amazing, you can't sort of deny that. And I think these little differences that they've done to this bike really help as well. I'll say the seat is more for aesthetics than comfort, but it does look great. So that's the first thing. The second is the sort of overall quality and finish of everything. It feels rock solid. Everything is, everything is really well put together, and there's some really nice little details with this bike. And the third thing, although it's a bit of a cheat because this has obviously got an aftermarket exhaust on, is the sound of it. And this engine, it's mega torquey, like I say, 100 newton meters of torque. You can be in much higher gears than you think and it doesn't struggle. It sounds absolutely epic with these sort of straight through pipes on. So yeah, it certainly attracts attention as well. I think the combination of that and the looks of it. I've had lots of admirers of this bike while I've been out on it today. So any negatives? Struggling with that one. So I guess one negative, which is this seat, which isn't the comfiest, but it's not a standard seat. The standard seat is apparently a lot more comfortable. So that's one. The second, again, you can't really get away from it, but it's a heavy bike, so around town and sort of manoeuvrability is what it is. You can't get over the physics, unfortunately, so it's a heavy bike. It's going to feel a heavy bike when it's at sort of standstill. It does feel like it's got a low centre of gravity though, so that's always good. Then third, which I guess it's not that much of a negative, but the ride's slightly harder than I expected, but I don't really think it's fair to give that as a negative actually. So this shows that even though it's a heavy bike, it's really controllable. We're stuck behind this bus that doesn't seem to be able to move up this hill, and I'm able to sort of ticking over at 1200, tiny bit of revs, and we're just crawling up it nicely. Doesn't feel heavy or anything. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the guys at Indian Brno. They're obviously an official Indian dealer, really friendly guys, speak English, so that's not an issue if you're not from the Czech Republic. They even rent bikes out, so if you're in this area and want to rent a bike, I highly recommend them. So again, big shout out and thanks to Indian Brno for lending me the bike to review. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, then do just ask in the comments. If you've enjoyed this, then I do lots of other reviews. There's new stuff coming all the time, so do give this a like and a subscribe. Until next week, I'll see you then.